What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Your Epic Life podcast. We have a great conversation today regarding important aspects of our body and thus our life that really isn't talked about. Today, we're talking with Desiree Lotz. Desiree is a trained detox specialist that has been helping people understand more about their bodies and how they are affected physically and mentally. She's been helping people for more than 40 years, including getting people away from addiction and into leading better lives. She created Instant CalMag-C to help manage many different factors in the body, including stress, sleep, pain, and much more. This is a great conversation from someone with a significant amount of experience in this area. This conversation set off a few light bulbs in my own mind in terms of how I should begin to make sure a few of these factors discussed are dialed in a little further in terms of my own day-to-day practice and lifestyle. A quick PSA and reminder that anything discussed in this episode is not a substitution for medical advice. You should always consult with your doctor to ensure exact specifics for you and your situation. That being said, make sure you are asking them these deeper questions regarding sleep, stress, nutrition, and more. Let's get into it with Desiree Lotz. Desiree, thanks for joining us.
Yep, you're welcome. It's so nice to be with you guys.
We really appreciate you coming on to share your story and your knowledge with all of our listeners. Desiree, we usually start these conversations off just by getting to know your background a little bit and just telling everyone out there kind of what your story has been, what your journey has been to get you where you're at today.
Okay. Well, basically, I'm a detox specialist, and years ago I was doing that. I haven't been doing as much of. You have a question?
No, keep going.
Okay. But basically, what happened was in Johannesburg, where I started my business, there was my church delivers this detox program, and they couldn't get any vitamin B1 anyway. And it was Christmas time in South Africa that summer, and it's a very busy time. So I went driving all over Johannesburg to go and find some B1 because I wasn't going to let that happen to them. So I drove everywhere. I couldn't find any pharmacies, health food stores, nowhere. So I thought, geez, I got all like suspicious and like, what's happening? Is big pharma stopping us from having V1, you know? Anyway, so then I called the laboratory that manufactures it in another city. And the guy said to me, it all went out on tender for the alcoholics at the hospital.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, wow, I like that. That's cool. That's totally fine with me then. Anyway, so he said to me I should just go to the local warehouse in Johannesburg and go and see if they had any, which I did. I drove over there and asked the lady, you know, South Africa is different to America. You can do way more things there than you can do here. Not the rules and stuff is not so scary.
Not as strict.
Yeah. So I went there and she said, no, sorry, they don't have any left. So I said to her, please do me a favor, take me to the shelf where you keep the B1. So she did. And on the shelf were 6 bottles. So I said, oh, can I buy those? She said, sure. So that's basically, I got those, took it off to the detox program. And then I made a decision I'm never letting that happen again. And that's how I started my business.
Wow.
More than 40 years ago, I found the nutritionist Adele Davis. I don't know if you know.
No.
Okay, so she's no longer around, but her basic fundamental nutrition data is so powerful. And do you know Dr. Roy Lee do you know Standard Process Supplements?
No.
Okay, so he's also, but he's American also, but his stuff is currently available as well, but you can get it from a chiropractor or something. Okay. But anyway, so these two people are my basic stable information sources. And what happened was I was doing the Del Davis stuff, and then I was pregnant. So the one book was Let's Have Healthy Children. And when I read in there that she described how vitamin E was so essential when you go into labor and deliver your baby, because if the cord happens to be around the baby's neck, and then it kind of might not make it. Vitamin E supplies oxygen through the bloodstream.
Oh, wow.
So the baby's chance of survival is way bigger. So kind of these are all my basic stable information sources. And then the detox program uses certain calcium and a certain magnesium with apple cider vinegar, and we call it CalMag. But the program is done with vitamins. There's no drugs. So basically the program is to get any, when you have any kind, alcohol, you have a drug, a medication, chemicals that are in the environment, all of these things, the body can actually offload some of it, get rid of it, but it can't offload it all. So what happens is the fat, it gets coated in fat and deposited in the fatty tissue of your body. So it's there. So let's say, an example I use is, let's say you go to a pub and you with your wife or your girlfriend, and you drinking and getting a little bit drunk, and then there's a guy flirting with your wife, and you and him have a punch up, and you get all like mad at him, and and he beats you and you beat him anyway. And then, okay, so now you go home and you come out of the alcohol, you're not, you become sober. But let's say you're walking down the street one day, or you're at the office and you haven't had enough to eat, and your blood sugar is kind of a little bit down and you're hungry. So what happens is the body pulls on the fat for energy.
Yep.
And let's say that piece of fat it pulls on happens to be having that alcohol in it.
Still in there.
Well, it will be in there, yeah. So the body's protection mechanism is the fat. So you got rid of some of it, the body can, but then there's some it can't. So then now it's coated in fat, deposited in your fatty tissue. Now you're hungry, or you're whatever, or you're tired. And so the body's pulling on this fat to get energy. And this piece of fat happens to have some of those alcohol particles in it. So that gets released in your bloodstream. So all the memories attached to that piece of fat or that particle, the upset with your wife, the being punched and stuff, all get stirred up again. And you don't know it logically, but it has an effect on you, and then you feel maybe angry or hurt in your head or whatever. You'll get a pain in the head where you got punched or whatever the mechanism was. So basically that's what happens.
Wow.
So I've kind of learned a lot of things over all the years. And anyway, so ask me questions if you want.
Yeah. Does that lead into the idea of epigenetics and how certain things can kind of stay in the system for a couple of generations almost? Is that similar?
I don't know about generations, but definitely in this body that you have. It definitely will stay there unless you can get rid of it. So I have a weight loss health coach who also sells my product under her own label.
Yep.
And she's a weight loss health coach. So when people lose weight, they are also actually detoxing. So it's pulling all the fat out of the body, and this is hitting in the bloodstream, and the same phenomena happens. So a lot of people who go onto weight loss programs, they give up, or they get very unhappy mentally, or they feel very uncomfortable, or they've got pains or bloated or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And this is the same phenomena. Those moments when that piece of particle got locked up there, and the cause of it and the situation around it will be stirred up again.
Yeah, like it's all being released essentially.
Exactly.
That makes sense, and that's a difficult process for anyone in general, right? So now that you're just starting a new habit or a new routine, that's as difficult as it is. Now, if you're stirring up all these kind of underlying emotions or hidden substances in the body that are going to cause reactions and responses, like that's a difficult process to navigate for sure.
Yeah.
I want to back up a little bit. So obviously you were born in South Africa. When did you make your way to the United States?
I came in 2003.
Okay. Why did you, what spawned your move?
Well, I had some issues that I was having there, and my daughter who was here, she said, "Mom, come here now."
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I just came for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
18 years ago, and I'm still here.
Is is that what led to starting your business and your company?
No, that I started in South
That
Africa.
all
And in
started
fact,
there?
yeah, the CalMag part of my business, because I was making all the other supplements, but I'm not doing those anymore right now. But the CalMag part of it is still based in South Africa, and I have my niece is my partner there, and she's running that. But here, it's a totally separate company.
Okay. Yeah. One thing we've seen in all of these conversations is just this idea of adversity, right? So everyone that we've talked to, they've had a significant event or a few events in their life that has allowed them or helped them to change the course of their life path a little bit. Is there anything that stands out for you in terms of that kind of helped push you in that direction, or anything you overcame specifically to get you where you're at today?
Well, basically, when my eldest daughter was about 4 years old, I actually made a decision to move here.
Okay.
And then I didn't.
Oh, wow. Wow.
She's now 44. So that was 40 years ago.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I've been here 18 and a bit years now.
So what caused you not to do the move when you originally wanted to? Was it just too much going on, or?
Yeah. And also, you kind of make decisions and you want to do something, but you don't always carry it out.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow it lives with, because these are things that I know. If you make a decision about something, it will happen,
yeah,
good or bad. So if you decide that the government is going to do something bad to you, guess what? They will.
Yeah.
It will happen to you. It might not happen to everybody else, but, if you say, oh, be careful, don't walk out there, you'll kick your toe and hurt your toe, guess what? You probably will do that,
Yeah.
So what you decide is what manifests.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that as well, right? And especially what I've seen over the last few years, and looking into like a lot of Joe Dispenza's work, a lot of what's written down in very old texts, whether it's religious or not. But these are ideas that have been around for thousands of years, right? Like what you put your thoughts and your emotions into, positive or negative, can happen. It has a big influence on what happens and unfolds in our life, right? So that's definitely a deeper, bigger topic that not a lot of us can explain really well, but there definitely is something to that. So,
well, I can give you a bit more data, which you can always
for sure
leave if you want to, or take it out. Basically, a human being has three parts to him. Mm-hmm. He's got the human body, he's got a mind, but he is a spiritual being. Mm. He has a body and he has a mind, but he is a spiritual being. So he controls everything. So whatever he decides will happen. So if I decide I'm going to get sick, guess what? I'm going to get sick.
Yeah.
So the way I explain the mind to people is, like, if you think of a movie that's rolling constantly, that's what's happening with everything that's happened to you in the past. It's all recorded and it rolls constantly, good and bad. Yeah. So the very often the bad things are hidden from you, but this is rolling. So if you think of that as you're watching a movie, then you have to look at, you're a spiritual being, you watching the movie.
Yeah.
You're playing it.
You're playing a part. Yeah. You're playing your role. Yeah. That's very interesting. Right. And we've brought this up in previous conversations, but anyone who's listening, think about what you really wanted to do in your life, whether it's a career, whether it's your family. Chances are you moved in that direction in some capacity, right? So just think about that a little bit deeper and sit with that for a bit. Now think about, okay, what do you want to change in your life? What do you want to create in your life? And that's why we created this brand, is to help people move in those areas, right? Whatever it is you want to change in terms of feeling better, there's certain paths that you can start to head in to make these changes actionable and to make them part of your routine and eventually a habit. And now you won't go back to your previous lifestyle once you get moving in that direction. But conversations like this definitely help move people in those directions. So again, thanks for sharing your time.
Yeah.
Obviously, Yep.
I
So
so agree with what you just said. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's really powerful, right? And we've all been
Mm.
there where maybe we want to jump into an exercise program, but for whatever reasons, excuses will come up. I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do, right? But if we can
Yeah.
help people just overcome that inertia, overcome that obstacle, whatever it is, to help them move in that direction, then
Just a baby step, a little baby step.
that's
Yeah.
all it takes, right? Is you just
Mm.
have to move in that direction in some
Yeah,
capacity.
I agree.
I want to switch gears a little bit. Obviously, with all the people that you worked with, what are you seeing in terms of stress, and how have you helped people manage quote unquote stress in their life, right?
Yeah.
Because we can never eliminate it, nor do we want to, but we need to have a good way
Control.
to manage it, yeah, or
Yeah,
control it in
control it.
some
Yeah.
aspect.
Well, first of all, I mean, my product is calcium, magnesium, CalMag, and that's a major stress inhibitor. Helps to reduce stress. But it's like there's so many. The first thing I tell people is don't switch on your TV.
Mm-hmm.
Do not watch your TV. Find really uplifting, enlightening stuff like this and watch that.
Yep.
But don't watch your TV. You get bad news, and it's merchants of chaos, and they keep trying to make you feel blah, or hate your neighbor or whatever. No ways.
It's programming, for lack of a better term, right?
No, that's perfect. That's exactly, yeah.
I've heard one of the best explanations I've heard of it was from a guy, Paul Chek, who I'm a big fan of a lot of his work, but he mentions the name television, but think of what that means. It means vision. So what kind of vision are you trying to tell people, right? Positive or negative? So again, it can vary on one side or the other, depending on what you're allowing yourself to consume.
That's a perfect explanation for it, yeah. So that's the main thing. And then basically diet, nutrition. Avoid as much as you can. It's not easy to tell people to stop doing this or stop doing that, because it's not always the easiest thing for people if they've been doing it for a long time.
For sure.
But sugar is a major, whatever you want to call it. And refined carbs is another one. Refined carbs turn to sugar in the body. Mm-hmm. So they also, are very harmful. And basic nutrition for me has always been my simple, stable, basic. And that's with anybody that I'm dealing with or helping, and I help a lot of people. And so nutrition first, and then CalMag. And in this nutrition, I actually have a nutritional program that I put together from Adele Davis's works and a bit of other information. So it's basics, fundamentals, like, for example, make like a smoothie out of brewer's yeast. Now, brewer's yeast is loaded with B vitamins.
Okay.
But in its natural form, in its food state. Now, one of the things is if you're deficient in B vitamins, your craving for sugar and carbs is going to go up.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So if you're low on those, you're going to have cravings. Then the calcium, magnesium on nerve. There's another very big point that I need to make here. There's the nutrition program, but then there's dehydration. Which is a very big factor. So I ask people the question, do you think drinking water can dehydrate you? And what do you think?
Depending on the quality of the water, let's say.
Okay, but it actually...
Minerals, electrolytes, yeah.
Exactly. It can dehydrate you if you're missing all those, what you just said. Mm-hmm. So basically, if you drink water, what happens? If you drink, you go to the bathroom. You drink, you go to the bathroom.
You're excreting it, yeah.
So what's happening is you're actually losing more and more minerals.
Oh, wow. And
the more minerals you lose, the more dehydrated you're getting, the more... Now, I've got, on my website, I've got a list of the symptoms, and my book is going to be coming out soon on the subject. But if you look at the list of symptoms, it's just not even funny. There's like extreme thirst, fuzzy thinking, sinus, metabolism problem, aggravated asthma or chest complaints, sore throat, allergies, coughing, headaches, colds and flu, high blood pressure. There's so many things. I mean, this list has got about 31 thingies on it.
Yep.
And sleep is on there, and depression, anxiety. These are all symptoms also of dehydration. So
Wow. Yeah, I've never thought of it like that in terms of, oh, we just drink water, we're staying hydrated. But if you're not getting those minerals back in there or
yeah,
vitamins, right, you're just excreting them.
exactly. So I do muscle testing. Do you know what that is? Where you use a person's arm.
Yep.
I do that. And 99, I would say probably 100% of people that I test, there's a point here where when you're a baby and you're born and the skull joins together here.
Hmm.
We've all got it, the fontanelle. If that's the point I use to test it, and everybody is dehydrated. And the
Wow.
minute I put the right, this is not this in the bottle. I use this for my drinking water.
Yep.
So I put salt in here. Now salt, and I'm not talking about the bad salt,
Yeah.
the white stuff. I'm talking about the real good stuff.
Like
I use this
sea salt. Yep. That's the
exact.
same kind I use exactly. We won't
It's the
mention
best.
we won't mention the brand, but good high quality sea salt for sure.
Yeah, and it's got the sea salt has got like 80 minerals in it. I used to be able to get these, but I haven't been able to get them anymore. This is seawater.
Okay.
And sometimes I've even had a lady I've had a few people, but this one particular lady, her blood pressure was screaming out the roof.
Mm.
She was here from France, and she came to see me, and I tested her. And when I do a count, I can count how many you need. She needed 8 of these salt water. So she called her doctor in France, and he said, no, your blood pressure, you can't take that.
Yeah.
But she didn't listen to him about it, and she did it. The next day, her blood pressure was normal.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it's so interesting. But the word salt, first of all, the reason why that one that I showed you is so good is because it's also got iodine in it. Some of the other good quality salts don't always have iodine. And iodine is very, very important for the thyroid.
Okay.
And that's your metabolism gland. But basically, so I test these people and then I put them on salt. So I use the drinking water and I put the salt. Now, salt, the word salt comes from the word salary.
Okay.
Pay. And you probably will remember that hundreds of years ago, the sailors used to sail around the world and go and trade all over on these sailing ships. And they got paid with salt because it's so vital for your survival. You would really literally die without it.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's got almost 80 minerals, roughly about 80 minerals in it.
Wow.
Do you have a question?
Yeah. So I guess why has salt been so demonized, for lack of better terminology, over the last, let's say 40, 50 years, right? Is it just that idea of like the table salt has been dwindled down and chopped down to, it's lost the minerals, it's lost even you mentioned the iodine. I thought like iodized salt, typically table salt, was more bad for us, typically bad for us.
Yeah, but that's a very good question, because salt, basically that table salt you're talking about is one part of this, sodium chloride. So what they do the same thing with making white sugar, because I've been to big sugarcane places and seen this. So the salt, they take it, they extract one part of it, the sodium chloride.
Okay.
And then they bleach it white, and then they refine it. Now, there's nothing in nature that's pure white.
Yeah.
So you'll never find anything pure white in nature. It's always got a bit of color or something to it. So basically, they've done that. And that is poison, and that is very dangerous. And if we look at all our bottled and canned foods and all that stuff, they got salt in it, but that's the bad salt they've got in it.
Sodium chloride.
Exactly, unless they specify that this has got, unless it says. So basically, that is what is harmful, and that does cause a problem, and that can cause your heart to pack up. But the real salt, with all the minerals, is vital for survival. It even, that salt even has some little bit of calcium, magnesium in it. Wow. So basically, there's a thing here about blood pressure. I'm going to just read it to you. It's on my site. The adrenals, I guess the people know what the adrenals are responsible for contracting and relaxing the blood vessels that lead to the heart. Thus, they are involved with controlling blood pressure. In order for them to carry out this function, they need salt, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. If they have an adequate supply of these minerals, they can do their job. So it's kind of like that kind of idea.
Yeah.
You need the whole thing. It's like you need like the brewer's yeast. It's got all the food sources. And there's even stuff in it that we don't even know, because there's, real food has got stuff that I bet has never even been discovered yet,
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So cofactors and all that make this work or make that work and do better in this.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that leads back to what we talked about as the human, right? It's not just you sitting here, it's your mind, your body, and your soul, right? So it's those three things which make up you as a human being. So that's pretty interesting.
But I just wanted to add to what you just said. If your body my purpose in life is to calm the planet down with my product CalMag. That's one of my big purposes. But here's another point. It's also to help people get attention off their bodies so they can get their attention outwards and on life and have fun and enjoy life. And if your body's not doing good, guess where your attention is? It's on the body.
Yeah.
It's not out there. So if one can lift and put the body in the kind of condition that you can now put and that includes mental, like depression and all those things will happen if your body's like, kind of thing.
For sure. Absolutely. And that's very similar to Epic in terms of these 5 pillars that we look at, but starting at the bottom, if you envision a triangle, your foundation is sleep, right? If we're not sleeping, we're not recovering, you're not going to be able to move up the ranks. And the very top of the triangle is your goals. So like once you're able to get these pillars under control and you're able to handle them and have them working for you a little bit more, you're going to be in a better position. And now you can take on the goals of your life, the things you really want to accomplish, right? But unless we get those foundational layers built and established, you're always just going to be kind of spinning your wheels, right?
I love that analogy about this base here. And sleep is vital for that. For the body rebuilds in that sleep time, and it's usually between certain hours. And it's just interesting because if your body's in bad condition, for example, the different cells take different lengths of time. Some cells, in a couple of hours, it's replaced. And in a couple of days, some cells are replaced.
Yeah.
The biggest part is in a 7-year cycle, your body's completely recycled. The cells are. Now, if you're putting good stuff in that 7-year point, your body will be up there. It'll be up there, obviously, earlier.
Yeah.
But by the 7-year point, it'll be way up there.
Yeah.
But if you keep doing the bad stuff, eating the bad stuff, and like you say, you're just never you're going to be in apathy, and your goals are never going to be achieved because you can't even look at them.
Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense, right? You don't have the energy, you don't have the motivation, you don't have the drive just because your body's not regenerating. You're not fueling it properly. You're not moving it properly, right? These are all important factors in the quote unquote term of health. Like that's really what makes up a healthy individual, right? Is mental, physical, emotional. So that's so important. Let's back up on sleep a little bit.
Yes, I want to go and sleep too.
Perfect. Yeah. How much of an emphasis is that in your practice in terms of helping people just make that a priority? And what are some of your top tips and strategies for people in that regard?
So basically, yes, sleep is a very big issue. And I've always been I've been between a 7 and a 9 hour sleeper. Never an issue. If I wake up in the night, I go back to sleep, no problem. And that's what I want for everybody, because then your body, you are regenerating.
Yep.
So the things that I recommend is, first of all, the CalMag and the minerals. But now I just want to sidetrack a bit here and give a little verbal visual.
For sure.
Okay, so basically, electricity comes into your house. I'm going to give you an analogy on how the body's electrical system works. The nervous system, basically. So basically, the electricity comes into your house, and it's all doing good. Your fan is working, your computer's working, the lights are all nice, and everything's good. Then there's some interference, and then you get a little bit of flickering.
Yep.
And it can get, varying degrees, it can get worse. In the worst case, blackout.
Yep.
And I don't like to use this, but basically that's, if you compare it, it's body death.
Wow.
In that comparison. So now we go back to, so the electrical current that comes into the house is the same as the electrical current that the body generates. The central nervous system is in the skull. and it feeds to every single nerve and organ and gland, down to your tippy toe. I tell people it goes down to your tippy toes, everything. So the messages, the signals come backwards and forwards. For example, if I go and touch a hot stove, and if my electrical current is working good, I'm off it quickly.
Jump back,
yeah. Exactly. Or if I walk in front of a car in the street, my reaction time is good.
Yep.
But if my electrical current is not working very well and I put my finger on that hot stove, the message will take longer to get back. So then I really burn my finger. Mm. Or if I'm stepping out in the road, goodness hope not, but you might not make it, basically. So your reaction is very dependent on your electrical current. Now, what creates the electrical current in the human body is the minerals. And that's why the salt and the CalMag are so vital, because that is what makes your electrical system work.
Wow. So
if your electrical system is working well, whatever you're supposed to be doing at whatever time of the day, because I've got all kinds of data on, if you wake up at this time always and stuff, I mean, there's always a reason, and that's Asian, medicine stuff.
Yep, idea of meridians and...
Yes, because when I'm testing people and they're like this, I test their meridians, I test their adrenals, I test the dehydration, calcium, magnesium, the liver, all kinds of things. I test those. Yeah. And if there's a weakness, I find out what will strengthen it. Then that's what the body's looking for, basically. So if your body is functioning properly, you will sleep, you will be comfortable, you'll be pretty calm, you'll be pretty happy, depending on your own life. Of course, there's other things, and you'll just get on with things. Mm. So that's why it's so important that I emphasize the point of proper minerals and a proper improving your diet, cutting out, as I like my coffee. I drink 2 a day. I spoil myself. But if I have a third one, that's fine. And I actually can have a cup of coffee at night and still go to sleep. Wow. And I know a lot of people can't, but anyway, that's probably, we all have different bodies. Mm-hmm. So the things that I encourage people to cut out or reduce, anything that's sweetened. If you want to have fruit juice, for example, make sure it's natural, unsweetened fruit juice. Anything that's got sugar added is dangerous. It's going to dehydrate you and it's going to cause problems. Too much coffee. There's so many things I can tell you now about. Obviously, alcohol. I mean, if somebody likes his alcohol, just be aware that you need to make sure you're taking your minerals so that you compensate at least for what you. Yeah. I mean, I like to help people get away from that, but I mean, it is what it is. And refined foods. So the more you can eat naturally and healthily, the better you are. So then
for sure.
Yeah.
Let's think of those 3 things right there that you just kind of dropped, right, in terms of how they impact sleep. So sweetened foods, anything that's sweet, alcohol, and then refined foods, right? If we think of most people who probably have trouble sleeping on a nightly basis, if they look at what they're doing, we're probably at least one of those is probably in there in some capacity, I'm sure, right? So those are 3 big things that will contribute to
and blood sugar. This is a big thing, because when your blood sugar spikes and drops, and I've got that's a whole another story which I'd have to get myself refreshed on to tell that story. But basically, when your blood sugar drops, you're going to have a problem sleeping. So I always encourage people to have a decent protein snack or something like that before they go to bed, or an hour or 2 before they go to bed, so that the blood sugar is kind of stabilized. Yeah. So if your blood sugar is stable, you should be able to wake up, get up, go, blah, blah, blah. The problem with this blood sugar spiking, and that diabetics have that problem, is very often they get put on psychiatric drugs. And that is just, to me, that is evil to do that to people. Those people, I would get them to, but unfortunately the people who handle those people don't do that, but I would encourage them to get with a nutritionist to get their nutrition sorted out, get their bodies back on track.
Yeah.
Because if you've got that under control, because that spike in the blood sugar and the deficiency of the minerals, especially like around the thyroid and the iodine and stuff, part of the symptom is depression.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So, yeah, so you know what, if you get the basics in on the body and work with people that will do that with you and move away. I mean, I'm not a doctor, and I'm sure you've got disclaimers on your site.
Yeah.
So, but work with it. And if your doctor is one of those kind of guys that keeps giving you prescriptions and find another doctor and find a health-oriented doctor who will build your body and help you come off whatever those things are. That's part of what I help people with too. But yeah, so those are very, very important for sleep. And then there's other factors. There's having some people, it doesn't affect me, but a lot of people it does, is having your cell phone next to your bed or in your room. And any electrical Wi-Fi type stuff, that can affect your sleep as well. So it just depends where you're at on those things. Those are things that you can start doing. Take the cell phone out the room, switch the TV off, don't have it in your room. You know, these are all things you can actually start doing that are simple.
That's a very big thing. So two things I want to touch on there. So one, diabetes has run in my family for a few generations now. So I've been testing my blood sugar just to get ahead of it in terms of
good job.
How do I respond to certain carbohydrates? What's my blood sugar in the morning? I found that certain mornings when it's elevated, I feel more tired. Like I feel like I'm just groggy. This morning I tested it. It was the lowest it's been in a while, and I felt great. My recovery score on my Whoop was through the roof. I had so much energy. I was clear. I was cognitive. So what a difference that makes, right? Just in terms of trying to balance out that blood sugar level.
Yeah. So what somebody like you, I don't know what you do before you go to bed, is just make sure you take a good quality protein snack. I don't know what people like. I don't have to do this because my blood sugar is okay. But a lot of people, I mean, things like eggs or that type of thing are really good.
That's funny you say that, because this is not an advertisement for our protein, but I did have a shake after dinner, probably about 2 hours before I went to sleep, with our new grass-fed protein isolate. So maybe that's a big contributor for it, as you say that. So that's
and if you look at my formula, my nutrition program on my website, I've got a particular thing in there called green energy, but it's any good quality product like that.
Yeah.
It's like, that's all we're looking for, the natural vitamin C, the other parts of the thing that is not in the brewer's yeast and not in the lecithin. And lecithin's another subject. We could talk about it another time, about cholesterol, but we can make that another subject. So it's like, that's great, because you probably handle that because of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense now that you say that. Yeah. The other thing that stood out to me, I was just away for a couple of nights on a camping trip, and so I use a Whoop. I check my sleep pretty regularly, and sleeping in a tent on a little air mattress on the ground, my sleep scores and my recovery was through the roof, right? So that may be a combination of sleeping on the ground, you're getting grounded, but also being away from Wi-Fi and electrical signals, because I live in an urban area. So if you just flip on your phone and try and connect to Wi-Fi, there's you can scroll for a couple of pages in terms of how many Wi-Fi connections that can pick up. So think about what that's doing to the human body, right?
Totally, 100%. You hit it right on the mark there. Yeah, the grounding and being away from all of that. Yeah.
That's really interesting, because my room is cool. It's dark. I don't have my cell phone on, but even still, you're still getting the surrounding Wi-Fi signals, electrical signals, cell towers, right? Like your body's still perceiving these. So it was interesting to go in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of nature, and I had some of the best sleep results, even though I wasn't in my bed and I was sleeping on a mattress on the ground.
Perfect. That's perfect. That's so healthy.
If you think of that, that's more natural, right? That's what we're familiar with.
The other thing I encourage people to do, I live at the coast. I don't know where you live, but the other thing, I mean, you could even do this on inland lakes, but to go to the sea, walk in the sand barefoot and walk in the water, because the minerals absorb through the feet. Or even through the skin. And if you were up near Salt Lake City, for example, type of thing, that would be all those kind of lakes, to walk in those and it's rejuvenating.
It's rejuvenating for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Let's switch gears a little bit. So,
Mm.
can you tell us a little bit more about Instant CalMag-C? Like what caused you to create that?
Well, that is part of the detox program. They have to be on that because when you're detoxing, you're losing minerals. And this is part of, and also the nervous system, the people are very uncomfortable. That's part of relaxing them and helping them push through on that thing. And I've been doing that particular, so you get the calcium, and there's a very specific calcium. It's calcium gluconate, not carbonate, gluconate. It's a very specific, and there's a reason why, but that can be another topic. Actually, just to quickly back up on that, calcium gluconate is the most potent painkiller there is.
Wow.
It's more potent than morphine.
Really?
And if you remind me, I'll tell you the story when I went into labor and had my son. It gives you an example of how potent. Anyway, so calcium gluconate, magnesium carbonate, and vinegar, you mix these things and then you give it to the people on the detox. So I've been doing that for 40 years. As soon as my babies were born, I started giving them CalMag.
Yep.
Very much watered down. I'd make it in there because you boil the water and you.
Yep.
So I gave it to them. So when I started my business, there were a whole bunch of people that came to America, customers of mine, and they had found this instant CalMag. So when they came back to South Africa, they wanted me to get this for them. So I did, because I'm going to serve my customers.
Yep.
But before I'll do that, I have to try it out myself because I need to know what is this, you know. So I tried it and I'm like, what the heck? This does nothing. So I stuck with my mixing it formula.
Wow.
Anyway, then what happened was a shipment of mine, because I was importing stuff, the vitamins and stuff for the detox program from here. What happened was our FDA, called Medicines Control Council, MCC, they confiscated a shipment of mine. Wow. And I was still this tiny little fledgling business just starting up, and it was, oh my gosh, it was traumatizing.
I'm sure.
But anyway, so what happened was it forced me to start making them all in South Africa. So I had a friend pulled me up by the hair, said, look at the mountain. And I got up and I started to go again.
There you go.
Yeah, so, and I encourage people, if ever there's anything bad in your life, just keep your eye on the mountain. Yeah. Just keep going, no matter what.
It's a good analogy for sure. Because it's going to happen, right? You're going to stumble, you're going to fall.
Yeah, exactly.
You get up and keep going.
Yeah, exactly. And keep the smile on your face and don't watch TV. So anyway, so then I was importing this, and then I had these few customers that wanted this instant one. So I got my manufacturer to start making it for me, the instant one. And of course, I tried it before I would sell it.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh my goodness me, this is amazing stuff. What's the difference? It took me years to find out what the difference was, but I did. And so I was making it in South Africa for a long time and importing it here. But then a few years ago, we started to local laboratory now making it for me. So, but basically, it's like, it's so fundamental. Calcium is your main mineral. It's your biggest quantity. Magnesium is in relationship to that, the next biggest quantity. So 2 parts of calcium to 1 part of magnesium is how the body. And the calcium, the body, it actually has a gland called the parathyroid. So you got the thyroid that's here, and then you got the parathyroid, which is 4 little glands on either side of the thyroid, but they're not related to the thyroid. They are separate glands. And their job is to balance the calcium in the body. So you often hear about people who the doctor says, oh, you've got too much calcium. They do all these things, and there's too much calcium. There's an exact reason why, because your calcium is not getting into your tissue. It's floating around in the bloodstream. So when they do a blood test, it's in the bloodstream. Yeah. But that's another subject which I can tell you what to do about that. So basically, so when I tested this CalMag and it was so awesome, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was it. It became my baby. So it's like a calming the world down and helping to get people off drugs or, you know.
Yeah. I really like that. That's really important now, maybe more than ever in
Oh,
previous history, right? So
mhm.
I want to back up a little bit. So why?
Sorry,
ma-
can
Yeah,
I just
sorry.
add something?
Yep.
The magnesium is also vital for diabetics, just so you know.
Okay.
They need more magnesium as well. So that's why it's such a good to have that balance, because you're getting both.
So it just helps kind of balance the blood sugar levels,
And that,
essentially.
yeah. But yes, I just want to quickly finish that part off. If you're deficient in magnesium, your calcium is going to pull magnesium from all parts of the body to balance,
Okay.
and vice versa. If you don't have enough calcium, the magnesium is going to pull it out of places too, because the body operates in a certain way. It needs certain
Yeah.
things to be in
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah, it wants to be in homeostasis, right? It wants to be in
Yeah.
balance. So obviously the day-to-day things in our life, so whether
Yeah.
we're moving, what we're eating, what we're exposed to, those all change that balance, that structure of balance on a daily basis, right? So
Yeah.
it's very important to try and put things back into balance when you can go into sleep to regenerate, to be ready
Oh,
to take on the next day.
totally. But I love that what you said about your protein drink, because the CalMag and the protein drink to balance the blood sugar is so vital. And I'm almost sure that if you tested yourself for a few days, you might find if you didn't have it, you'd probably wake up in the
Yeah.
morning a little bit more like this. But if you had it, then you're more like this, you know?
Well, there we go. I'm going to run that test for the rest of this
Yeah,
week at least
yeah,
and
yeah,
see,
yeah.
because that was a good number today. So, why magnesium carbonate? Obviously, there are a few different types of
I
magnesium,
don't
right?
actually
So,
know, because the formula I got it from somebody that the founder of it,
yeah,
and so I don't know why specifically, but his chemists and stuff put that together, and this combination is the
the best.
mother.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a few different forms of magnesium, and I think that
Yeah.
obviously specific benefits for each and every one. But that's something I'll have to take a little deeper dive into myself, because I know that's recently I've discovered that there's different forms of
Mm-hmm.
magnesium, right? It's
And
not
calcium,
just
and
one, and
calcium.
calcium. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the one you mentioned? Calcium carbonate. That's
No. That's a no.
yeah. That's a bad one, right? For
That's the one
quote
that
unquote.
deposits behind the bone. You know, when people get atherosclerosis, you
Mm,
know, and even cholesterol, but we'll get into that as a separate subject. But basically, what's happening, and kidney stones and all that, there's calcium deposits, and behind the eyes, cataracts and all that, it's calcium deposits. That's when you're having those wrong forms of calcium, they're depositing in the body.
yeah.
Whereas if you're taking the CalMag with the calcium, the magnesium, minerals are alkaline, you need to adjust the pH, so the vitamin C adjusts the pH,
Yeah.
so that you mix it, and it absorbs instantly into the body, so it
Mhm.
doesn't sit and deposit in places.
Yeah, I know there are certain milk products, not necessarily milk, but milk replacement items that I was consuming quite a bit, and I heard about calcium carbonate and looked at them, and there's
Mm,
quite a few that have that on the label. So
mm,
I switched to a different organic one, and it
good.
doesn't have it on there, right? So
Yeah.
that's an important thing, is just to check out those food labels and see, hey, is calcium carbonate in here, right?
And
Especially,
even other stuff like sugars and refined stuff
oh
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But
Yeah.
for sure, if you have a history of family heart disease, heart
Mm,
problems, anything like that, do take a deeper dive into just looking at the labels and seeing
yeah.
what's on there, right?
Yeah,
Because
I do that all the time. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what you're consuming for sure.
Yeah.
I want to touch on the idea of deficiencies and excesses in diet a little bit. What's your typical process for identifying those? Is it a blood test? Is it the muscle testing, the kinesiology testing, like you mentioned?
Yeah, I don't get, because I'm not a licensed practitioner, so
Yeah.
I don't send people for blood tests or some. Um, the kinesiology, the muscle testing is a magical tool,
Mm-hmm.
and it might not be the ultimate of ultimates, but at least you can get a good idea of what's going on with the person, you know, with their body and all that. So if I test them and their liver's showing, for example, weak, then I'll test and find out what the liver's asking for. Obviously, the diet is a very crucial thing, and that has to be addressed.
Yeah.
Um, so, that's important. But the muscle testing gives me a lot of information.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like about it, if I test you on it now, let's say, and I get a weak spot, and then we find the right thing for it. No matter what it is, you see that reaction
You see the
yourself.
result, yeah.
Exactly. So you see, oh, okay, like this dehydration thing. I mean, people's eyes go like, whoa, because they never thought of it. Some people are drinking gallons of water every day.
Yeah.
You know, there's all kinds of different things.
Yeah, that's me as well, right? Drinking a ton of water every day, but maybe not necessarily getting the minerals or electrolytes in there as much as you should. So,
Yeah.
for someone listening right now and they want to find out, okay, what am I deficient in? What am I taking in excess of too much? What would be the standard course for them to help identify that? Is it just getting a blood requisition and getting those levels checked, or like where would you?
They could do that. I mean, I haven't recommended that because generally speaking, the people are in in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many ways. Adele Davis's books are also a good resource. Her one called Let's Get Well, but they're not in print anymore. So you have to go on Amazon and buy the old copies.
Old copies, yeah.
Yeah, and I like the older copies before somebody came along and changed some stuff. So I've got a bunch of old ones.
Yeah, I like that too.
Let's Get Well is the one book. Let's Eat Right to Keep Fit is the other book, and Let's Have Healthy Children. Those are my 3 books from her.
To recommend. Wow.
But Let's Get Well, you can look up the symptom of what you personally experiencing, and then find out what she recommends.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a good resource for sure for anyone listening to make a note of that and check that book out if that's something that resonates with you.
You're right.
Desiree, I want to switch gears a little bit, but how important is movement or just exercise, movement in general, more organic movement? How important is that to overall health, in your opinion?
Yeah, that is very important. Now, I'm not an exercise person, but I walk. Now, I'm going to be 71 this year. And when I walk with people in their 30s, you know what? They tell me, slow down, because I'm like a lunatic. I call myself a hyperactive kid.
There you go.
But basically, yes, the motion, and not like, you know, if you go, and you walk and you know, or you do exercise. Exercise is obviously a lot of people. I know a lot of people who do exercise, and that's great.
Yeah,
because it's also a routine.
It is for sure, and it's an important process for sure. And the analogy we've used before, right? If we think of all the water, all the fluid, all the electrical signal moving through our body, if we're just stagnant all the time, right? Think of a swamp or a body of water like a swamp, where the water's not moving.
Goes green.
Yeah, it's stagnant. It's green. It's not as healthy and as free flowing as something like a river, right? So think of how important that is just to move your body, to get that natural pump action happening, to move all those fluids through, to move that electrical signal through a little more efficiently, right? That's such a key aspect to health. And like I said, it doesn't mean you have to go run 10K a day or join the gym and go 7 days a week. Like you said, just go for a walk.
Take your dog and go for a walk. Yeah. I just wanted to add something silly. It's actually going back in about the salt. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to give people a thought to think with. If you take some of your blood and you go and analyze it, and you take seawater and analyze them, both, they're almost identical chemically.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When you cry, what do your tears taste like?
Yeah, salty.
Yep. And if you sweat and you happen to lick your arm, what does it taste like?
Salty.
That's because the liquids in your body are salty. I just wanted to give that as a very important point, because it's so important to make sure you're getting all those minerals.
Oh, yeah, that's a good analogy, and that's a good way to frame that for sure. For people that will understand how important that salt is in your body. Yeah,
I like to give people, because the body, you can't see what's going on inside. No. So you got to have pictures from the outside to see, oh, okay, kind of thing. Yeah.
To make sense of it, in a different way.
Yeah.
You've helped many people overcome addiction as well. Can you break that down a little bit more for us in terms of how you help people move through that? I know I have some close personal friends who struggle with addiction through their life, and that's a tough one, right? Because it can consume not just the person who's addicted, but it also impacts friends, family members, a lot of different factors, right? So,
okay, so there's a very specific program for that. Which I'm not going to particularly get into right now. My daughter founded the first residential facility in South Africa, and I was a detox person that I ran the detox aspect. So basically, and please let people write to me and ask me for the data that I'm not sharing right now, because I'm totally happy to share that with you or with them.
Yep.
So basically, when people are addicted, you first got to get them out of the addiction. So there's what we call the drug bomb, and there's a certain vitamin regimen that they need to take, and it's can be fairly intense. Then you get them off the drugs, then they can go on to the program, the detox program. They have to be off first because it's vital. So I mean, I've helped people. I mean, even things like, it just drives me crazy. Even the big pharma, oxycodone is a terrible, terrible drug. I've, have to help people. Like, I've got a customer up in Canada. I had to help him, and he had to, and he was an Olympic gold medalist, this guy.
Wow.
And he had an accident, and they put him on that, and then his life was, but anyway, he's in a much better state now. I haven't spoken to him for a while, so I don't know if he's 100% off, but he had gotten down to virtually nothing.
Yeah.
The thing to do is to make sure the body's getting what it needs, food-wise, the proper food, and a good vitamin regimen, and the CalMag and the vitamins, and then they have to be very often, depending on, they're going to have to maybe be monitored by somebody.
Yeah.
You'd have to have them, take them away from life generally here, and go out, like what you're saying, sleeping on the mattress out in the country, that type of thing. So you can actually, they don't have access to their supplier. I mean, we can always organize. I can see if I can get my daughter to maybe participate in a talk with you guys, but and then she can
great, actually.
Yeah.
Separate episode, because that's just such an important thing, right? And it's growing, and especially if we look at kind of what's happened over the last year, a lot of things have been taken away from people, whether it's jobs, family members, what have you, that causes a lot of stress, and now people to numb the pain, so to speak, have fallen into other traps, right? It can be very difficult to get out of that. So
you're totally right. I've been there and I've seen it.
So
I haven't personally, fortunately, I never myself was ever on anything.
Yeah.
I had a boyfriend that got me to smoke, we call it dacha in South Africa, marijuana.
Okay.
But he pushed my head and he shoved the thing in my mouth, and I can't smoke a cigarette even. So I didn't but the little bit that got in made me act a little bit weird.
I'm sure,
that is never something I'm going into.
No,
no ways. No.
Desiree, what helps keep you focused and consistent in your daily practice? And what are some of your tips for goal setting for people to help people move in those directions that they want to change or they want to create in their life? So what can you share with us in that regard?
Okay, first of all, what we've just been discussing, the basic body things in place, the body, enough sleep, and hang around with the right people. You definitely, if there's anybody negative in your life and you want to create this, and they say, oh, but do you think you can?
Yeah.
Get them off your lines. These are so important. You need uplifting people, and hang out with those kind of people, and then find groups that are kind of focused in a similar direction, maybe. That's also very good. And then kind of prepare your day with your battle plan, what you're going to do for the day, what you want to achieve, and then just keep doing it. And keep your eye on the mountain always, no matter how bad you feel, whatever. If I go through moments like that, I put my attention on, this is what I'm trying to achieve, and then I go.
Yeah.
And it doesn't often happen because obviously my basics are in, but it can happen.
Yeah, I really like what you said there is take care of the basics. Make sure you're sleeping. Make sure you have a way to manage stress, whatever that is. Make sure you're moving your body. Make sure you're getting everything you need nutritionally, and just move towards those goals, right? When things happen, when things fall off, if you have a bad day, something happens, you had a shitty outcome, just don't scrap it, but keep moving towards it the next day, right? And think of what you can do. Nothing's going to happen instantaneously, but it takes those consistent efforts over time, repeated, like compound interest. Like think of what would happen if you did it for a week. What happens if you do it for a month? What happens if you do it for 3 months, right?
Yeah.
What happens if you do it for a year? You're going to be a completely different version of who you are, right? So conversations like this drastically help all of those people out there listening around the world move in that direction. So again, thanks for sharing your time and knowledge with us.
And the main thing is keep your eye on the mountain.
Keep your eye on the mountain. I like that. There's a couple questions here before we wrap up, but one that we've asked everyone thus far is that if you had one message you would tell the entire world right now, every single person on the planet is listening to you, what would that message be?
It honestly has to be keep your eye on the mountain and get your body working with you to get up that mountain.
Yeah, I like that. Right, is not forget about that it's there, right? Because if that's something you want to move to, something's calling you towards that. You can't ignore it, right? Because that's just going to cause a little bit more turmoil and difficulty in your life, right? If something's moving you in one direction, like this goes back to the idea of, we talk about listening to your gut or your intuition or your higher self versus your ego, right? It's taking time to differentiate those voices, for lack of a better term, in your head, right? And see which one resonates more with you, and spend a little bit more time moving towards that one, because I guarantee you it will change a lot of things in your life for the positive. But like you said, keep your eye on the mountain and take care of your body in all of those ways.
Yep, that's totally. I love it.
That's beautiful. Desiree, how can everyone reach out to you if they want to get a hold of you and promote what you have going on?
Okay, they can email me. Okay. Desiree, DESIREE. I don't know if you've got it there.
Yep.
At CalMag-C.com.
Okay. Website as well. We can link to that in the show notes.
Yep.
We can put that on there. I know where that is as well. Perfect.
And definitely look up the dehydration and the nutritional program. And I'll look at the nutritional program, and if I've got the wording that I said in there, I will change it to just redefine the protein powder type thing. Yeah.
Desiree, thanks for joining us. Like I said, thanks for sharing your knowledge and your experience. Like I said, this is going to help someone out there around the world today in some form or fashion. So again, thanks for being so generous with your time and sharing your story with us.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Thanks once again to Desiree for taking time out of your day to share all of your knowledge and all of your over 40 years of experience with all of our listeners. There's a lot of takeaways in there for me personally that I'm going to begin to incorporate a little bit more into my lifestyle, and I'm sure there's quite a few things that resonate with you out there as well. So that's why we do this each and every week, is to bring you these episodes and these conversations from interesting people from all walks of life, all places on the earth, to help you move forward and continue to live as the best version of yourself and live your epic. So most importantly, thanks once again to all of you for continuing to tune in, and we'll catch you next week. Peace.